Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to ask the question, how good is Capital One? Now, Capital One is a credit card issuer that you probably have seen many commercials on with either Jennifer Garner or Samuel Jackson asking the question, what's in your wallet? Now, the question is should Capital Ones be in your wallet, or should Capital One credit cards just be looked past because there are many other great credit cards out there? In this video, I'm going to go over many different Capital One credit cards, and then hopefully by the end of the video, you can determine whether or not Capital One credit cards can make sense for you and your situation. Now first, let's go over the Quicksilver lineup of credit cards with Capital One. Now you may not realize this, but there's actually a bunch of different Quicksilver credit cards that Capital One has. There's a secured Quicksilver credit card, a student card, there's one that actually has an annual fee, and there's one that also gives you a $200 sign-up bonus after you're spending $500 in the first 3 months of having this card. Now the thing about the Quicksilver cards is that most people who actually end up applying for Capital One credit cards actually end up getting themselves a Quicksilver credit card early on in their credit card journey, because the Quicksilver credit cards seem to be pretty easy to end up getting approved for. I had a Quicksilver credit card very early on in my credit card journey. The Quicksilver cards give you 1.5% back on all of your purchases. They are very simple cards. They did actually add a feature where they end up giving you 6 months free of Uber One membership. So that's a nice added benefit you end up getting from these cards. But as a whole, these cards are very simple. And honestly, when you end up comparing them to other catch-all credit cards, they're not as competitive right now. When they first came out, it was actually pretty big. But now there are cards out there that give you 2x back on all of your purchases, whether it be the Wells Fargo Active Cash Card or ends up being the Citi Double Cash Card. You're gonna get 2x back on your purchases with those cards. So 1.5% back on all your purchases just isn't as competitive. However, if this ends up being the card you can be approved for, then I would definitely say early on in your credit card journey, it can actually end up making a lot of sense to get yourself a Quicksilver card, whether it be the secured card or the student card, or if you just happen to be someone who's younger, like in the early 20s, and is just trying to dip their toes into getting credit cards and trying to be responsible with their credit cards. Capital One is very good about approving people early on in their credit card journey. Now the Quicksilver credit cards, along with all Capital One credit cards, have no foreign transaction fees, which is awesome. And also with the Quicksilver card, if you happen to get yourself the one with excellent credit, you're actually gonna get 15 months of 0 APR. So it's pretty much ends up giving you like a free loan if you end up taking advantage of this. You do have to make sure that you are strategic and you don't end up owing money at the end because you don't actually have a way to pay it off. But if you can end up paying it off, this can definitely be a great benefit to have when applying for this card. Capital One also has the travel portal. We can end up getting yourself 5x back when you end up booking hotels and car rentals through Capital One's travel portal with your Quicksilver card. Next, we're going to be looking at the Capital One Savor lineup. Now, the Savor lineup, I think, is a lot stronger than the Quicksilver family. If you happen to be able to get approved for one of these Savor cards, I'd highly recommend applying for them first. And if not, then look at some of the Quicksilver cards. But the Savor cards, I think, are much stronger than the Quicksilver lineup. Now, when it comes to the Savor cards, there's going to be two that I'm going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the Savor One card and also the regular Savor card. First, let's go over the Savor One card. Now, as of recording this video, the Savor One card currently has a sign-up bonus of giving you $200 cash back after you're spending $500 in the first 3 months of having this card. A very easy sign-up bonus for anyone to hit. Now, when it comes to multipliers for this card, you're gonna get yourself 3x back on dining, 3x back on entertainment, 3x back on streaming services, 3x back at grocery stores, and then 1x back on all other purchases. This card also has no foreign transaction fees. And then also with this card, you're going to get yourself a Uber One membership all the way till November of 2024. Plus you get yourself 10% back on Uber purchases when you end up using your Savor One card for either Uber Rides or Uber Eats. And just like the Quicksilver cards, if you end up using Capital One's travel portal, you're gonna get yourself 5x back on hotels and on car rentals when you end up using your Savor One card through Capital One's travel portal. Now, I think this card is an excellent card because it gives you 3x back on a variety of different categories, and this card also has no annual fee. Now, when it comes to the regular Savor card, that card has a $95 annual fee, and the difference with that card is you end up getting yourself 4x back on dining, 4x back on entertainment and select streaming services, you get 3x back on groceries, and you end up getting yourself 8x back when you end up booking a Capital One entertainment purchase, and you end up getting yourself 1x back on all the purchases. So this card does give you 4x back in a few of the same categories that you end up getting with the Savor One card, but it does have a $95 annual fee. When you look at the sign-up bonus for this card, as of recording this video, you end up getting yourself $300 after you're spending $3,000 in the first 3 months of having the card. So you end up having to spend a lot more to get yourself only $100 more when it comes to the sign-up bonus. For me, I don't think the sign-up bonus is really worth it because you end up looking at other cards that end up having a $95 annual fee. Usually end up getting a much higher sign-up bonus, but with this card, you only end up getting yourself $300 back. You still have to spend $3,000 to be able to earn that. So in my opinion, I think that the Savor One card ends up being the stronger of the cards. However, if you end up being a really high spender, then getting just the regular Savor card might end up working out better for you in your situation. But as a whole, I think that the Savor One card ends up being an incredibly strong card and one of the best cards out there when it comes to earning potential that has no annual fee. And lastly, we're gonna look at Capital One's travel credit card lineup, and this is going to be their venture credit cards. Now, just like the Savor and the Quicksilver, there are a bunch of different venture credit cards. The three we're going to look at are going to be the Venture One credit card, the regular venture credit card, and then the new kid to the block, which ends up being the Venture X. Now, the Venture One credit card is going to be one that has a sign-up bonus that I've actually seen fluctuate, but the normal sign-up bonus ends up being 20,000 miles after you end up spending $500 in the first 3 months of having this card. When it comes to earning potential for the Venture One card, it's not very strong. You get yourself 1.25% back on all of your purchases. Now, you do also get yourself 5% back when you end up booking hotels and car rentals through Capital One's travel portal, just like the other Capital One cards. But just when you end up doing normal spend with this card, you're only gonna end up getting yourself 1.25% back on all of your purchases. The good thing I will say about the Venture One card is that this is a no annual fee card that will allow you to grab the miles that are connected with this card and then transfer over to transfer partners. Most credit cards out there, if you end up having a card that allows you to transfer over to transfer partners, it ends up being an annual fee that's connected with it. But with this card, there is no annual fee connected with it, which means that if you're someone who's just a beginner at this and wants to dip their toes into trying to understand how transfer partners end up working, if you end up getting yourself the Venture One card, you can end up using this card to transfer over to transfer partners, get an understanding about how that part of the game works, and then not have to pay an annual fee connected with this card, and then play around with the miles you end up having with this card to transfer over to transfer partners, and then see how much value you can end up getting when you end up taking advantage of the transfer partners connected with Capital One. The next card is going to be the regular venture card. Now, this card has a sign-up bonus currently of giving you 75,000 venture miles after you end up spending $4,000 in the first 3 months of having this card. Now, when it comes to earning potential with this card, it's a very simple card that gives you 2x back in venture miles on all of your purchases. You get a $100 credit towards global entry and TSA PreCheck, plus you also get yourself 2 complimentary passes to the Capital One Lounge. And the last card is going to be the Capital One Venture X card. Now, this card currently has the exact same sign-up bonus as the regular venture card, where you end up getting yourself 75,000 venture miles after you end up spending $4,000 in the first 3 months of having this card. Now, this card does have a $395 annual fee. However, there are some credits and perks that are connected with this card that can easily offset that. First credit you're gonna end up getting is going to be a $300 travel credit. Now, the way you end up getting this credit is when you end up making a purchase with this card through Capital One's travel portal, and then you also end up getting yourself 10,000 miles back after every anniversary year with this card. Now, the miles can end up easily being at least 1 cent per point if you end up redeeming your venture miles just on statement travel purchases, which means that if you end up taking advantage of the travel credit and also just statement credit with the venture miles, you end up getting yourself $400 back in credits with this card, even though this card has a $395 annual fee. So this means this card ends up being a positive just from making sure you end up taking advantage of that travel credit. Additionally, with this card, you're going to get yourself 5x back when you end up booking flights through Capital One's travel portal. You're gonna end up getting yourself 10x back when you end up booking hotels and car rentals through Capital One's travel portal. Plus also you end up getting yourself Priority Pass with this card, which allows you to end up accessing over 1,300 lounges that are connected with Priority Pass. And then also you end up getting yourself access to Capital One's lounges as well. Additionally, with this card, you can actually get authorized users for no additional charge, and that authorized user also ends up getting themselves their own Priority Pass. I think that the Venture X card ends up being one of the best travel credit cards in the game, and I think that if you were someone who's new to traveling and looking to get themselves some excellent value for a travel credit card, then the Venture X card can end up definitely being a great one to add to your wallet. Now, the great thing about the Capital One cards is that you can end up making an awesome duo with these cards. If you end up getting yourself the Savor One card along with the Venture X card, these two cards connected can end up getting you a lot of miles, because the Savor One card, even though it ends up earning cash back, you can actually end up grabbing that cash back and then transferring it over to the Venture X card and having it become Venture Miles, which can end up being way more valuable. Now, this to me ends up being one of the best duos out there. The only other duo I think that rivals with it ends up being the American Express Platinum and Gold duo, but those two cards end up having some really high annual fees. So if you're looking for two cards that don't actually have too high of annual fees, coming up at $395 with all the different perks you end up getting with the Venture X card that can end up earning you a ton of miles, and I think that this duo can end up being one of the best ones out there. Now, the reason why I said that the miles end up being more valuable is because Capital One ended up adding a bunch of transfer partners over the past couple of years, and their program is actually pretty good now because of that. If you actually want to take advantage of some of the awesome transfer partners, a good one that I could highlight will end up being Turkish Airlines Miles and Smiles. If you actually want to fly from the US over to Europe in business class, you can actually end up doing that for 45,000 Turkish miles. So if you end up getting the sign-up bonus for the Venture X card, you can use that sign-up bonus to fly in business class on Turkish Airlines or with one of Turkish's partners, which can end up costing thousands of dollars if you actually end up looking at a business class flight from the US over to Europe. So you can end up getting yourself some excellent value when you end up looking and taking advantage of the transfer partners that are connected with Capital One. Now, even though I've said a number of great things about Capital One, I still think that there are a few downsides when it comes to Capital One. The first thing is going to end up being that there aren't that many options of good Capital One credit cards to get. Now, there are a few really good Capital One credit cards to get that I have highlighted in this video, but the ones that are bad with Capital One are really, really bad. I think if you end up looking at other programs such as Chase or American Express, there are many good cards and there's also some really great cards with their program, and then there's a few bad cards. But with Capital One, I feel like there are a few good and great credit cards, but as a whole, there's just not that many credit card options with their program. Also with Capital One is that they're known to not approve people who actually end up having some really good credit history. So if you actually end up having a really high credit score and you apply for a Capital One credit card, there's a good chance you might end up actually being denied for that card. Now I know this actually might confuse some people because you may think that a higher credit score should mean that you should get approved for a card, but with Capital One, what they're looking for is people who actually end up making on-time payments all the time. However, people who actually don't end up making the full amount in the payment every single time. Because what Capital One is actually looking for in their customers is people who actually are going to be paying interest, not people who are going to miss payments, but Capital One is definitely looking for people who are going to be paying interest. So this is the reason why if you happen to be early on in your credit journey, there's a higher probability of you actually getting approved for a Capital One credit card. So that's the reason why I would definitely recommend to try to get yourself one of those cards early on in your credit journey. But I do think that it is unfortunate that Capital One may deny you if you actually end up having a high credit score. So how good is Capital One? I believe that the good Capital One credit cards are really good. If you end up looking to get yourself one of the top no annual fee credit cards out there, the Savor one I believe is one of the best in the game. If you want one of the top tier premier travel credit cards, the Venture X is going to be definitely one that you should be looking out for. And also if you happen to be brand new or just early on in your credit card journey and you're trying to get yourself approved for a card, then the Quicksilver card can definitely end up being an excellent one to apply for. So what's in your wallet? But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what you feel about Capital One. If you happen to be interested in any credit card, I will have referral links in the description box. If you decide to use them, it will really help out the channel, and I'll be incredibly thankful for your support. If you happen to really like this video, then please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Peace.